Starting the game, you have very little building materials to work with. And although it may seem like you can't do much, there is a surprising amount of combinations of beams and snapping points that you can use to get some very interesting results and that can make any wooden building stand out. In this video, I'm showcasing some ideas of wall panels and windows that can be achieved with regular wood beams with the help of snapping points from doors and core wood pieces. Granted, they do require a little bit more wood than the regular wall. So let me show you this little collection of beamworks made in 2x2 frames and how they are made and used as modules that can be replicated. First module creates small gaps between vertical beams, which are easy to make. As for all of the examples, I first start with creating a frame with a 2x2 opening in the middle. Snap a beam in the center of the opening, rotated by 2 ticks. On either side of the beam, snap wooden doors on their corners. This creates extra snapping points where we can snap some other vertical beams. Finish by adding the end beams attached to the frame. This is already an interesting paneling. After that, add horizontal beams on the top and bottom as well as a 2x1 wall. Place the core wood beam with its upper snapping point attached to the corner of the opening. Then snap another horizontal beam on the lower snapping point of the core wood to create the final smaller gaps in this pattern. This can be replicated along a wall or serve as a pretend window. This paneling is made multiplying a same 2x2 module that goes like this. Once the frame is in place, snap beams on each side, rotated by 2 ticks. Place also beams on the top and the bottom. Place 2 doors on each side of this middle point, snapped on their corners. Use the other corners of the doors to snap more vertical beams like this. Place core wood beams from top to bottom of this new beam like this. Then snap smaller horizontal beams on the new core wood beam snap points. This spaces them in a way that leaves small gaps between them. This standalone module can work as a small window decoration or can be extended upwards or sideways. This 2-beam paneling adds a kind of horizontal rhythm to the beams and works in a similar way as the previous, also inside a 2x2 opening. Place vertical beams on each side, rotated by 2 ticks, then find the center of the opening and place doors on either side. Then place vertical beams on the other snap points of the door, the opposite corners and the center of the doors. Remove the doors and you can finish with horizontal beams at the top and the bottom or extend them if you want. This tight paneling uses vertical beams placed a lot closer together. To do that, we use the same technique as before. Inside this 2x2 opening, we place beams on each side, rotated by 2 ticks. Place also one in the middle, then place doors on each side of this middle beam, but also on the sides of the openings. This makes extra snapping points where all of the other wooden beams can be placed, creating a tight, zigzag kind of texture. Just be mindful that the gaps between the different beams is not regular. Hence, extending this panel requires making more 2x2 openings to keep the same layout. This basket panel is very similar to the previous. It starts the same way, so placing beams on the sides, rotated by 2 ticks, then placing 2 doors on the opposite corners and the center pillar, and 2 doors on the side of the openings. That makes many new snapping points for placing more vertical beams tightly together. Once this is done, we place horizontal core wood beams on the sides of the opening, and we use the new snapping points for placing half walls with the beams on one side. This creates a basket-like kind of texture, which is kind of interesting for an accent wall. This panel fence has a sort of window on the upper part, but uses the same technique with the door as the previous one. In the 2x2 opening, first place vertical wood beams on the sides, then place one in the center. Place doors snapping their corners on each side of the center beam, as well as on the sides of the opening. Then place small wooden beams on the new snapping points created by these doors. Remove the doors and end with horizontal beams at the top and the bottom, and halfway from the top. You can remove some of the beams as shown here to have wider window openings or less amount of small beams per panel. Floating squares is a pretty funny pattern. Apparently there is a way to have beams float next to each other but still have the game consider them as attached. It's pretty easy to do, and you can actually make a full wall of floating pieces. First, set up the 2x2 frame opening with the wooden beams attached on each side, then snap a door on each side of the frame on their corners. Once this is done, place corewood beams on the other corners of the doors. This creates extra snapping points slightly higher. Snap 2 vertical beams on these new points, snap horizontal beams to close the square shape, and there it is, a floating square. You can actually extend these floating blocks and make a whole wall out of them, which is pretty funny, adding pieces in between them using either corewood or doors to position them. They will somehow hold and not fall. This pattern resembles some of my previous builds inspired by Eastern woodworks and starts similarly to the previous one. On the upper edge, place 2 doors in the middle, then place corewood beams on the other corners of the doors. Then we can place small wood beams on the lower part of the corewood. Remove the doors and corewood and you get these floating-like beams. Finish the square shape just like before and then add horizontal and vertical beams intersecting this at the center. This pattern can be used on accent walls or fences and looks very nice in my opinion. This larger panel is a variation of the previous one and starts similarly. The key here is to place doors snapped on the lower sides of the openings at their corners, and place corewood beams on the opposite corners of the doors. But also do repeat the process on the upper corners of the opening, thanks to some extra doors above, just like this. The new snapping points created by the corewood are going to be the starting point of the smaller wooden beams extending outwards from the opening. The vertical ones need to be rotated by 2 ticks. Remove the corewood and place 2 intersecting beams in the middle, horizontal and vertical. Add the beams on the sides of the opening like this and you have the main pattern. This can also be used as a window by removing the middle beams. Since this extends outside of the 2x2 frame, what can be done is extending the outer beams and giving it an extra frame like this. Removing the walls on the outside and placing new walls on the outer frame. A very fancy kind of paneling for bigger surfaces. There it is! A few ideas for accent walls, windows and fences that can be easily done with the earliest resource we get in the game, wood. I hope these experiments in patterns and panels gives you some ideas for your builds, and I hope you liked this video. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and as usual, catch you in the next build.